hello to
Yep,
Jim Rogers. Is he ready? Hello, sir. Good morning.
I'm
How are
ready.
you? How are you? So nice to see
I'm
you.
ready. How are
Let me
you?
wave it
Nice
out
to
for you.
see
Let
you.
me also wave it out for you. I can see you. I can hear you. Finally.
Okay, I can see you and hear you, and it's nice to be here.
Wonderful. Every time we talk about gold and silver, the first image that comes to my mind is your silver chalice with a lot of water in it. Shall we start with silver? Shall we start with gold? And we've just finished a sugar discussion. We can start with sugar also.
I certainly I own gold, I own silver, and I own some sugar. I
I'll
hope
get
you
into
make me rich.
specifics, but I would first, let's say, encourage you to speak your thoughts on what is happening in the world. We are moving from an era of globalization to deglobalization. How do you see the world changing in the light of what the US President Donald Trump is trying to do?
Well, if you know what Mr. Trump is trying to do, you're way ahead of everybody else. Mr. Trump does not know what he's trying to do. He changes every day. Uh, Mr. Trump says he's trying to make America strong and powerful, and I guess he is, but he changes every day.
Mr. Trump is trying to make America powerful, but that could come at a cost of high inflation, more debt for the US balance sheet, and certainly bad news for emerging markets. So, whom do you think in this attempt to deglobalize will win, and where do you think the casualty will happen?
Well, Mr. Trump is going to do whatever he thinks is good for America that day. I'm sorry, my problem with Mr. Trump is he changes his mind whenever he sees something on television. So, with some people like Margaret Thatcher or Nehru or some people in the past, we knew what they thought. But with Mr. Trump, he changes his mind all the time. He says he wants to make America great again. That's wonderful. But then he changes his mind how. If you know how he's going to do, then you know what he will do next month, but nobody else does.
But Jim, as an investor, how do you cope with this kind of uncertainty? Do you continue to remain bullish on the US dollar, or do you move money out and maybe start nibbling into some other countries like Buffett is doing, investing into 5 Japanese companies?
Very, very good question. I have sold all of my US stocks. I have sold most of my stocks in the world because I don't know what he's going to do. The American market is making all-time highs. I own US dollars, but I don't own many other currencies.
Now, logically, the US balance sheet is getting weaker. It is unlikely to improve, and in the near term, it could come at the cost of inflation. So, do you think there is merit in parking money or capital in US dollar? I mean, is this a safe haven trade, or that is a more like a since nothing else is available, everybody is hiding in it?
I own US dollars because when problems come, people will go to the US dollar. They think it is a safe haven. It is not, but they will go to the US dollar. I hope that the US dollar will then go up a lot and I will be smart enough to sell. I hope.
Do you have a level in mind when you hope to sell?
No, it depends on how things evolve. Trump is going to do everything he can to get the dollar higher and to make the American economy better. If it works, and I think it will, at least the dollar part, then I hope I'm smart enough to sell. Maybe I should watch ET now to find out when to sell.
Let's talk about the gold and silver, your favorites definitely. But the last time we connected with you, you were actually focusing on silver and you were liking that commodity. Do you still own it, or have you recently added to more of silver in your portfolio? Give us a sense there, and also within the agri basket, what's the positioning like, and which agri commodities do you like specifically right now?
I still own silver. In fact, I'll probably buy more silver this afternoon after I finish speaking with you. I will not add to my gold. Silver is down, gold is up, so I will buy more silver. I do like commodities. Agriculture is better because agriculture is still a little bit depressed.
Jim, silver does well when there is growth in the world because 50% of the total demand for silver is industrial in nature. Gold does well when there is uncertainty in the world because it is considered to be a safe haven. So what makes you more bullish on silver relative to gold?
Yes, it is depressed. I mean, silver is down almost 50% from its all-time high. Gold is making all-time highs. Both are precious metals and have been for centuries. Gold is expensive. Silver is cheap, I think, I hope.
Jim, for the longest time, you've been a big believer in Indian tourism and India as a country in terms of potential. However, as an investor, you've been a big votary of China and Chinese stocks. Are we at that turn when Chinese stocks have started to revive? Because globally also the narrative now seems to be moving towards China and there seems to be a lot of movement on that front.
Well, I will tell you that for the first time in my life, I am optimistic about Delhi. The people in Delhi seem to understand that prosperity is good, that capitalism is good. Delhi has always said that, but they've never really believed it. For the first time in my life, I think that Delhi understands the world, Delhi understands economics, and Delhi wants to make India successful. So I am optimistic about India. I am optimistic about the Indian markets. I'm even optimistic about Delhi for the first time in my life.
Not anything in India, though, because we are seeing a huge amount of FPI and FII outflow from the country, and it's lasted for over a year now, Jim.
Well, that's fine. I hope that makes things cheaper. If you want to be a successful investor, you have to go against the crowd. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I've made many mistakes in my life. But in my view, it is time to put money into India the next time it's depressed.
So what would you buy in India? Considering, it all has fallen and valuations are pretty ripe, or rather pretty cheap, I should say, across the board, across market caps, across sectors and stocks.
Well, it will depend on what goes down the most. If you tell me what's going to go down the most, that's where I will look. I want to buy cheap. Certainly, agriculture in India is cheap. But tell me what's going to go down the most, and that's where I will look.
Jim, there's a time you were a crude bull, but a lot has changed in terms of oil demand and oil consumption. Gas demand is going higher. Alternate sources of fuel are getting created. Technology has ensured that oil can be drilled and more oil can be drilled at a cheaper rate now. Where do you think the long-term trend for oil is? And when I say long-term, 5 years, 10 years?
Higher. The world is running out of known reserves of oil, of natural gas, of hydrocarbons, and the demand is certainly not disappearing. In fact, when prices go down, it makes demand go up. So I am not selling my hydrocarbons. I will probably buy more if they go down.
There's a time when Jim Rogers would hop onto his bike, go around the world, and then meet interesting people, find new ideas. So if Jim Rogers has to hop onto a bike, and it's never too late again, Jim, hop onto a bike and then go on a long holiday, but before he goes on a holiday, he has 3 trades. Which are those 3 trades Jim Rogers would do before he hops onto his next world adventure?
Well, I will certainly take my daughters to India. Everybody needs to see what's happening in India because it is a dramatic change, in my view. And I would like to introduce my daughters to the Indian stock market because, in my view, in their lifetime, India is going to be even more important than it has been in the past. And I will try to teach them about silver.
No, Jim, that's really on a personal front. I'm curious to know that Jim Rogers, the investor, before he goes on his next world tour, where he has option only to, let's say, invest in one or two asset classes and then go on a long holiday where he'll not be bothered about what happens to daily prices. You'll only check them, let's say, once or twice in a year. Where would you like to invest before you go on that, adventure world tour?
Agriculture. I will buy agriculture because in the next few years, agriculture is going to be one of the best places in the world to invest.
Jim, other than that, in technology, there's a lot of chatter with respect to AI and the chips, etc. Give us your sense that how do you read into these emerging technologies and how is that likely to impact the way forward, and what's your sense there?
Everything I read about AI is extremely exciting. The world has seen exciting technology changes in the past. AI seems to be one of them. I do not have investments in AI because I am not technical enough to understand them. But if and when I learn more about AI, I hope I'm smart enough to invest in AI.
Jim Rogers, is Bitcoin a bubble which will hit us, which will haunt us, or Bitcoin is a reality and it is a true blue alternative for everybody?
It's going to hurt a lot of people. I hope I'm not one of them. I hope you're not one of them. I don't see any reality to the movement. In my view, it's a bubble and it will blow up someday. And I hope I don't get hurt.
Are the other bubbles?
You don't get hurt.
Which are the other bubbles in the world? You know it more than anyone else that financial markets, there would always be bubbles, there would always be despair, there would always be trouble. Which are the other bubbles in the world according to you?
Well, that's the main one I see right now. I don't see any other markets that are exploding and going through the roof irrationally. That's the only bubble I see right now. Maybe I should watch E.T.
Well, of course they should watch E.T. because Jim Rogers comes on E.T. and that's what I always say, that keep on watching E.T. because Jim Rogers always comes on E.T. So what, to your mind, Jim, is the long-term trend for the US 10-year paper or interest rates? Because up until now, we've only seen the interest rates coming down. It's really for the first time interest rates have gone from 2% to 3 to 4, and now they could go to 5. Where are US Treasury or 10-year paper headed in the long term?
Interest rates are going to go higher in the U.S., probably much higher because the U.S. keeps printing money and borrowing. I mean, the debt is unbelievable in the U.S. now. I do not understand why anybody would lend money to the U.S. government because the debt keeps going higher and higher and higher. And it's going to get worse. Interest rates in the U.S. are going to get worse because the debt is well, there's a bubble for you. The U.S. government debt is a bubble.
Jim, so how long before the imbalances they get corrected? And I'm just breaking it for our viewers here. If I look at the world economy right now, nearly 70% of the total stock market cap is in US stocks, while US does not represent even 30% of the world economy. So for our viewers, I want to bring this point out that nearly 70% of the market cap of the stock market is in US equities. How long do you think this will sustain?
I will imagine that in 2025, it will come to an end. It's already been the longest in American history without a big problem. 2025, it will come to an end.
2025, the party in US market will come to an end. Now, that's a very powerful statement, Jim. I mean, we would archive it and we'll play it again and again.
Well, the U.S. market has been extremely powerful since 2008, 2009. It's been the longest in American history. It's already very, very powerful. Markets that are that powerful usually come to an end, and I imagine the American stock market will come to an end this year. I have sold all of my American shares.
And you are putting that in US dollar, and the reason why you are putting them in US dollar, because you think that's the ultimate safe haven, right? That's what we can conclude.
The world thinks the US dollar is a safe haven. So therefore, I put my money into US dollars. It's not a safe haven, but people think it is. America is the largest debtor nation in world history, but people don't think that way. They think that the US dollar is a safe haven. So I have put my money into US dollars.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. And